Hey, folks, here we are. It is now Wednesday, the last day of June. We are halfway through the year, and it is an amazing, amazing day. Things are happening all around us if you simply do some research and pay attention. The planning around what's going on is so critical to our financial success, and the future of everything is in our hands. It is us, the citizens of the United States, that have to stand up and speak our voice and make a difference. Otherwise, the politics of the world, the deep state, the federal government, and their misleading ways of doing business with our money is going to continue to bury us. Hi, folks. I'm Tom Young, and I'm here for Money Shifts, which is a podcast on anchorfm.com and my Facebook Live broadcast. I want to thank everybody for following and jumping in here. Any comments are well appreciated, good, bad, negative. It doesn't matter. I love to hear from people that are listening and hearing what I'm talking about. We start every program with prayers for everybody worldwide. I know I have listeners and followers from literally all around the world, all the way to Australia. And God bless you all. May God keep you safe and provide you with blessings and abundance abound. We also want to pray for everyone who has lost loved ones because of this China virus, this pandemic that has gone literally around the world. We also want to pray for those who have been lost, that the Lord would gather them into his arms and carry them to his kingdom above, heaven above. In Jesus' name we pray. Great things today, great thoughts today. The quote for today, again, we're still talking about Abraham Lincoln, and these are a couple of quotes from Abe, Honest Abe as he was known by. The man does not live who is more devoted to peace than I, none who would do more to preserve it. I do not think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. You get the message in that? We talk about that all the time, or you're either busy being born or you're busy dying. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to the extent of the difference, is no democracy. You know, these are wise men of times in the birth of our country. And it is amazing the insights that they had at that time that still so much apply to today. Isn't that interesting? We need to work on things. Today, the title of today's program is Retirement Myths Revealed. And with that, I want to talk about busting financial planning lies. And we're talking about principles of prosperity. Remember, we've talked about them. And the first one is think. Thinking is so important. It's the first thing we have to learn how to do. Thinking differently gives us the ability to see things differently. We must learn how to measure correctly our progress and our success. Because if you don't measure correctly, you get a wrong answer. You do not get the right answer when you do this, which leads to the wrong premise. Okay, and remember, there are 5 elements: risk, taxes, regulation, inflation, and depreciation of the money, which is coming on board very quickly right now. Inflation is about ready to blow the roof off of everything. And remember, inflation steals from you the purchasing power of your money. Your dollars will be buying less. I got gasoline, filled up the gas tanks the other day in my car and my wife's car, and I got a total of 30 gallon. A year ago, that same 30 gallon of gasoline cost me about $42. I paid $63 the other day for that same 30 gallons of gas. I don't know if that meant much to you, but that $20 more was a huge difference in cost of gasoline. It was a third more than it was a year ago. Everything is creeping up. This is inflation at its best, and our politicians and the Federal Reserve is in denial that it is really there. The Federal Reserve, I saw the balance sheets. You can go to Fred, that's the Federal Reserve in Missouri, and get these graphs and statistics. And right now, the feds have $8 trillion of assets on their balance sheet. Which, what do I mean by that, Todd? That means they printed $8 trillion and purchased assets for their balance sheet to put the money into circulation. So that's $8 trillion of assets that the Fed now owns on their balance sheet that they bought with money that was printed from nothing. I hope you understand that, folks. And we're sitting here talking about the myths of retirement. And I want to read you a story. It's a little bit long, but I want to read you this story. And I think it makes a point to understand principle number 6, which is flow. That's what we're talking about today. Principle number 6 is movement of money. The money has to move in order to create more, okay? A village had lost its local well, and in order to continue functioning as a community, it needed to find another source of drinking water. The town council took bids from 2 businessmen, both of whom promised to supply the water. The first businessman bought 2 large buckets and immediately began hauling water from the lake in the nearby hills. Because there was no water in town, his business flourished. Every bucket he brought to town was sold in advance and at a good price. He found that the more water he brought, the more the townspeople used. On and on and on. The second businessman took a very different approach to solving the water problem. For several months, he planned hiring experts and engineers to study the feasibility of a large pipeline running from the lake into the town. The estimated cost of the project was very high, far beyond his own resources. So the second businessman formed a company, offered stock to prospective partners, and engaged several financiers to help underwrite the cost of building the pipeline. Finally, after 6 months, the construction began. Meanwhile, the first businessman bought buckets, hired family members to form a bucket brigade, allowed him to bring more water to town, and gave him a few moments of rest. But this also cut his profits due to the labor costs. And worse, even though he controlled the water business, the first businessman heard the rumblings of a new pipeline would bring water for a fraction of the price. A year later, the pipeline was completed. For a modest installation fee and even smaller monthly assessment, every resident of the village could have all the water they needed. Within 3 weeks, every household in the village was online except one. The first businessman was still holding out, bringing his own water in a bucket every day. 1 month after the pipeline opened, the conclusion was clear. The first businessman had worked hard, made a decent profit, but now was out of business. Second businessman was a happy stockholder in a thriving business, one that could reasonably expect to provide an income flow for many years. The fable does a good job representing some of the essential differences between typical financial planning and prosperity economics. The bucket approach represents the typical financial planning approach in the following ways. The bucket solution is the water supply challenge was simple. Buy a bucket, fill it, and empty it. With financial planning, the solution to finance challenges are very much the same. We want to provide for retirement, buy a bucket labeled IRA, 401k, and fill it and empty it at retirement. Need to provide funds for college, buy a bucket labeled college, and so on and so forth. UGMR 529 and fill it. Empty the college begins. Empty when the college begins. Buying buckets and filling them provides. I'm not going to read anymore, but I hope you get the idea. The whole idea in my newest book, an ebook called Financial Mastery Coaching Blueprint, I talk about the 4 rules. save 20% of your income, accumulate 50% of your annual income in accessible capital, where you can get at it without taxes and without penalties. Number three, own your consumer debt. Get out of consumer debt with other commercial companies. And if you have to make a capital purchase, you make it with your own money, and then you set up a payment schedule and you pay you back with interest so that you capture the opportunity cost that would have been lost otherwise. And number four, you accept the CFO challenge and become multi-generation wealth creators. That's really what it's all about, folks. So when I think of retirement planning, what is the ideal way to approach what we're talking about here to create your retirement plan? As I start this process of saving money, I want that money to earn interest or investment rate of return or real estate and rents or however it's invested. But I do not want the money to compound and accumulate. I want that earnings, interest, dividends, whatever, to be paid to me each year in cash. I'm going to use that income, that passive residual income, to buy and pay for my auto insurance, my homeowner's insurance, maybe hospitalization premiums, whatever my routine, the electric bill, etc. I'm going to use that cash flow to pay those expenses. When I pay those expenses, the earnings money, my hard-earned dollars that I was paying for those things, now becomes new savings to add more savings with interest, investments, real estate with rents, etc. And now I've created another additional source of income. The income comes to me, I use that income to pay more in some of my expenses. At some point in time, this process will provide income equal to or greater than my lifestyle cost, what it costs for me to live day to day, month to month, year to year. And at the same time, as I'm adding more and more money to these accounts and savings, my income increases. If I have rental property, I'm going to increase the rents over time, and on and on and on. So now when I reach a point in time where my passive residual income is equal to or greater than my monthly lifestyle expenses, do I have to work anymore? No, I don't. And with that is another part of the story, because today's retirement age is like age 87. I've talked about that. We'll go over it, I'm sure, again as we go forward in the next day or the next day. But I want to cut it off there. I wanted to talk about movement of money, velocity of money. Money has to move to create wealth. It is a proven fact that when you put money in the bank, they loan it out to other people. They put money in motion. They want you to park yours and just leave it sit here forever. But they put their money in motion. That is how they make money, more and more and more money. Corporations do exactly the same thing. They turn over their products and services and they create cash flow. They create movement of money. Folks, this is the secret to real financial success. And then taking it to the next level where it becomes multi-generational, where you eventually store your money in a banking designed life insurance policy, a policy specifically designed with a dividend paying mutual life insurance company that accumulates capital. And the rate of return ultimately is better than anything the banks have ever paid, but it is tax deferred and tax free if you use it properly. And it is the safest place on the planet to store capital, so says the Federal Reserve, and so says history, because in all of history, not one person ever lost their cash value from a life insurance policy of the type I'm talking about. I'm going to cut it off there today. We'll move on. Tomorrow is going to be multiply and strategies that we're going to talk about with finances. But God bless. Get my new book, The Family Money Farm, right up here. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the big booksellers. you can go to cfo-project.com right up here. Put in your name and email address. You'll instantly get a link, be able to download it cover to cover. God bless. We'll see you here tomorrow again at noon, July 1.